On March 4th, 2025, 3 cars rolled into my shop in the same week, and together they told a story most drivers never get to hear. The first was a sedan with 224,000 miles on the odometer, in for nothing more than an oil change and a cabin filter. The second was a compact SUV whose owner kept smelling raw gasoline in her garage every morning. The third arrived on a flatbed, misfiring so badly it couldn't hold an idle, with a coolant reservoir the owner admitted he'd been topping off every week or two for almost a year. All 3 cars had 4-cylinder engines. All 3 were built by companies with enormous engineering budgets and decades of experience. And all 3 were owned by people who did their oil changes, drove normally, and believed they had bought something dependable. One of those engines was a Toyota, one was a Honda, one was a Ford. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly which was which, why the differences at 200,000 miles are far bigger than the spec sheets suggest, and why one of these 3 companies made a set of engineering decisions 15 years ago that is still quietly paying off for its owners today, while another made decisions that are still generating class action lawsuits. I have been working on cars for over 2 decades, and I want to be clear about something before we start. I am not loyal to any badge. I have seen bad Toyotas, good Fords, and everything in between. What I am about to tell you is not brand worship. It is pattern recognition. The kind you only develop after watching thousands of engines cross the 100,000-mile mark, then the 150,000-mile mark, and then either sail past 200,000 or die trying. Because here is the uncomfortable truth the marketing departments will never say out loud. These 3 companies did not build the same kind of engine and tune it differently. They made 3 fundamentally different bets about how a 4-cylinder should work. And at 200,000 miles, those bets stop being philosophy and start being invoices. Let's start with the bet that went wrong first. Ford's mainstream 4-cylinder engines from the last decade are the EcoBoost family, the 1.5, the 1.6, and the 2.0-liter turbocharged engines that powered millions of escapes, fusions, and edges. On paper, the idea was brilliant. Take a small engine, add a turbocharger and direct injection, and get V6 power with 4-cylinder fuel economy. And when these engines are healthy, they genuinely deliver that. They are quick, they are smooth, and the fuel economy is real. The problem is not the concept. The problem is what happens inside the block as the miles pile up. These EcoBoost engines use what is called an open-deck design. The tops of the cylinders are not fully supported by the surrounding block material, which leaves room for coolant passages, but also leaves the cylinders slightly more free to move under heat and pressure. Now combine that with a turbocharger pushing high cylinder pressures and with a head gasket that has to seal the narrow bridges between cylinders. Over years of heat cycles, that seal can degrade. And when it does, coolant does not spray out onto your driveway where you would notice it. It leaks inward into the cylinders themselves. This is the failure mode that fills forums, fills service bulletins, and has fed a stream of class action lawsuits alleging that coolant intrusion in the 1.5-liter, 1.6-liter, and 2.0-liter EcoBoost engines leads to misfires, corrosion, overheating, cracked cylinder heads, and in the worst cases, complete engine failure or even fires. Ford issued a technical service bulletin in 2020 calling for replacement short blocks and head gaskets on affected fusions and escapes, and later added coolant level sensors. But plaintiffs have argued those replacement blocks share the same underlying design, and the litigation has continued for years. Here is what that looks like in my shop. The flatbed car I mentioned? That was a 2018 Escape with the 1.5 EcoBoost. Coolant had been seeping into cylinder 2 for months. The driver's only clue was a coolant reservoir that never stayed full and a heater that occasionally blew lukewarm. By the time it misfired hard enough to alarm him, the cylinder wall was washed, the spark plug was fouled white, and the honest quote was a replacement engine, on a car worth maybe $9,000. And I want to be fair here, because fairness matters more than a dramatic story. Not every EcoBoost fails. I have customers with 2.0 EcoBoost Fusions past 180,000 miles that have never missed a beat, usually highway-driven cars with obsessive coolant monitoring. And Ford's older, boring 2.5-liter, naturally aspirated four-cylinder, the one in base Fusions and countless taxi and fleet hybrids, is genuinely one of the most durable engines Ford ever sold, precisely because it has no turbo, modest cylinder pressures, and simple port injection. The irony is brutal. Ford's most reliable four-cylinder of this era is the one with the least technology in it. But if you are asking which mainstream Ford four-cylinder you are most likely to actually own from the last decade, it is an EcoBoost. And at 200,000 miles, an EcoBoost that has never had coolant intrusion is an engine that got lucky, not an engine that was designed to make luck unnecessary. Now Honda. And Honda's story is more complicated because Honda did not make one bad structural decision. Honda made one aggressive efficiency decision and then spent years managing its side effects. Honda's volume four-cylinder since 2016 has been the 1.5-liter turbo, the L15 family, found in the Civic, CR-V, and Accord. Structurally, this is a well-built engine. The block is solid, the turbo is sized conservatively, and the fundamentals are sound. Honda's bet was different from Ford's. Honda bet on running a small, direct-injected turbo engine extremely efficiently, lean, cool, and clean. The side effect showed up fast, and it has a name every Honda technician knows: oil dilution. In direct injection engines, fuel is sprayed straight into the cylinder, and under certain conditions, cold weather, short trips, and an engine that never fully warms up, some of that fuel washes past the piston rings and ends up in the oil. Every engine does this a little. The 1.5 turbo, particularly in 2017 to 2018 CR-V models and 2016 to 2018 Civic models, did it a lot. Owners reported oil levels rising above the full mark and the smell of gasoline in the cabin. The concern was serious enough that Honda extended powertrain warranties on more than 1 million CR-V models and Civic models in the United States and issued software updates that changed fuel injection timing and idle behavior to help the engine burn off that fuel. Here is why this matters at 200,000 miles. Oil that is thinned with gasoline does not lubricate the way oil should. It does not destroy an engine in a week. It shaves margin, a little extra wear on bearings, rings, and the timing chain accumulated silently over tens of thousands of miles. Two identical 1.5 turbos can reach 200,000 miles in completely different condition depending on climate, trip length, and how seriously the owner took oil changes. The ones I see thriving belong to owners who changed oil every 5,000 miles, regardless of what the maintenance minder said, and who drove far enough to get the engine fully hot. The ones I see struggling lived on 8-minute commutes in cold weather with 10,000-mile oil intervals. So my honest verdict on the Honda is this: it is a good engine wearing a condition. Managed well, these engines absolutely can run deep past 200,000 miles. Honda's fundamentals are too good for them not to. But it is an engine that asks something of you. It does not forgive neglect the way older Honda engines did, and that is a real change for a brand whose entire reputation was built on forgiving neglect. Which brings us to Toyota, and to the bet almost nobody noticed, because it was a bet on being boring. While Ford was betting on turbocharging and Honda was betting on aggressive downsizing, Toyota looked at the same efficiency targets and refused to put a turbo on its bread-and-butter engine. The 2.5-liter four-cylinder in the Camry, RAV4, and Highlander, first the two ARFE, Then from 2017 onward, the dynamic force A25A stayed naturally aspirated. No turbo, no boost, no high cylinder pressures hammering a head gasket 10,000 times a minute. Instead, Toyota chased efficiency through sheer engineering patience. The A25A runs an extremely high compression ratio and reaches roughly 40% thermal efficiency, among the best figures ever achieved in a mass-produced gasoline engine without forced induction. And here is the detail I respect most as a mechanic. Toyota's D4S injection system uses both direct injectors and port injectors. That second set of port injectors sprays fuel over the backs of the intake valves, which means the carbon buildup that plagues direct injection-only engines, Hondas and Fords included, gets continuously washed away. Toyota spent extra money on injectors so that you would not spend extra money on walnut-blasting carbon out of your intake at 120,000 miles. Is the Toyota perfect? No, and I will not pretend it is. Early 25. A engines had recalls involving fuel pumps. High-mileage examples can develop sticky EGR valves. Some cars driven exclusively on short winter trips show the same milky oil cap condensation any modern engine shows. The electric variable valve timing system is more complex than the old hydraulic setup and will eventually cost more to service when it does need attention. These are real things, and any channel that tells you an engine has zero issues is selling you something. But here is the difference, and it is the difference that decides this entire comparison. Toyota's known issues are maintenance items. Ford's known issue is a structural failure mode. Honda's known issue is a chronic condition. When a Toyota 2.5 comes into my shop at 200,000 miles, I am checking an EGR valve and looking at service records. When an EcoBoost comes in at 130,000, I am pressure testing the cooling system before I even pull the plugs. That is not the same category of problem, and it is not the same category of ownership experience. The car, with 224,000 miles from my cold open, the one that came in for an oil change and a cabin filter, was a Camry. Original engine, original head gasket, no oil consumption worth mentioning, on a documented diet of nothing more exotic than regular oil changes. And the honest part is that this car did not surprise me. That is the point. These engines routinely run past 250,000 and often past 300,000 miles, and the reason is not magic. It is that at every design decision, Toyota chose the option with the most margin, then used technology to claw back the efficiency that margin cost them. Think of it like this: Ford and Honda built sprinters and asked them to run a marathon. With perfect conditions and perfect care, a sprinter can finish a marathon. Toyota built a marathon runner and then trained it until it was nearly as fast as the sprinters. At mile 5, you cannot tell the difference. At mile 20, which is 200,000 miles in engine terms, the difference is everything. So let me give you the clear answers this title promised. If you are shopping used and want the highest probability of a drama-free run to 200,000 miles and beyond, the winner is the Toyota 2.5, and it is not close. The naturally aspirated design, the dual injection, and the sheer volume of these engines already out there past 250,000 miles make it the safest four-cylinder bet of the last decade. If you own the Honda 1.5 Turbo, do not panic, manage it. Shorten your oil intervals to 5,000 miles with quality synthetic. Check your dipstick monthly, and if the level is rising or the oil smells like gasoline, change it early. Make sure any applicable software updates were performed. Give the engine real drives that get it fully warm. Do that, and yours can be one of the many that go the distance. If you own a 1.5, 1.6, or 2.0 EcoBoost, your job is vigilance. Check your coolant level weekly, not monthly, weekly. Unexplained coolant loss with no visible leak is not a quirk. It is the early symptom of the failure that defines these engines, and catching it before it fouls a cylinder is the difference between a repair and a replacement engine. Look into whether your vehicle falls under any extended coverage, because for some model years it does. And whichever badge is on your hood, remember the one thing all three of these engines agree on: modern four-cylinders live and die by their oil and their coolant. The days of forgiving, low-stress engines shrugging off neglect are over. The engines got smarter, the margins got thinner, the owner's habits matter more than they ever have. If this helped you understand what you are actually driving or what you should buy next, hit like so more drivers see it before they sign for the wrong used car. Subscribe for weekly breakdowns that give you the insider view dealerships hope you never get. And drop a comment telling me which of these three engines you own and how many miles it has, because those numbers from thousands of real drivers tell the truth better than any spec sheet ever will. The most expensive engine is not the one that costs the most to buy. It is the one that quits 50,000 miles early. And now you know how to spot it before it is yours.